Hey, I'm Jeremy. Welcome back to Rugby Informer. We're just taking a quick look at the Round 4 Rugby Championship encounter between the Springboks and All Blacks. It ended up in a 18-12 victory for South Africa. Initial impressions, these two sides just have the ability to deliver. They put on an incredible spectacle for the public, and they just have such an ability to bring out the absolute best in one another and make sure that this rivalry is as fierce, intense, and competitive as ever. And it's a privilege to watch these two sides go against each other. So it again was another classic that's going to go into the books of Springbok v All Black history. But obviously the game itself went in favor of Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks. It was a very intense, very fast, very physical game, full of kicking, quick turnovers, counter-attacking. This game really had it all. It didn't have too many kind of long-range running team tries, but the tries that were there were well-constructed, well-executed. And I think the Springboks got the upper hand on the All Blacks in terms of their game management, in terms of their planning. This game really did come down to those minuscule moments, game plan decisions that gave the Boks the upper hand. You know, they chose well to go for the corner or to go for posts and take the points when they were on offer, even when maybe the shots at goal weren't as accurate as they needed to be. They were really playing the game on their terms. The All Blacks were doing a pretty good job at their game management, but again, they, out of desperation and pressure, they also went for the corner, never got a try out of it. They should have gone for posts. And when they did go for posts, Damian McKenzie also wasn't on his best kicking form. You know, it really was a game that came down to the minuscule moments. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the Springboks and All Blacks games that come down to the absolute inch before the try line or a kick that hits the posts or something like that, because those are actually the margins that these teams have to get the better of in order to beat one another. You know, these are never going to be one-sided games. Those 57-point blowouts or whatever, you know, matches like that, like the one back at Twickenham last year, you're not going to see those often between these sides. Those are anomalies. So we got to see two amazing tests between the Springboks and All Blacks. And this game was full of some pretty interesting moments. An area that was the most competitive was probably the breakdown. Both sides were playing very, very fast and very frenetic rugby, getting the ball out quickly from the breakdown. Cortez Ratama was really good, I thought, in the first half at getting that ball out as fast as possible. And on the other side, Grant Williams was playing at an incredible pace, getting the ball out from the forwards and getting it right down the back line as fast as possible. So I think that both sides knew that that area was going to be quite highly contested. And when they had the opportunity to make it a mess for one another, they definitely did that. It seemed like each team had the ball for 2 or 3 phases, and then there was a turnover at the breakdown. And you know, they had 2 or 3 phases and then it turned over again. I think both sides wanted to find space behind one another's backfield. But in my opinion, this is the best in the business doing it. You know, you had Villiers Leroux, Cheslin Colby, and Kane Moody doing a fantastic job at clearing the backfield and making sure they were well placed when the All Blacks kicks were coming through. You know, and on the other side of the field, you had Will Jordan, Damian McKenzie, Geordie Barrett floating around, making sure that none of those kicks bounced, none of those kicks rolled into touch. So both sides were not finding much luck with their tactical kicking. There were a few that kind of found some space, but generally, both sides had to rely on some innovative rugby to get the upper hand. And while the All Blacks did do really well and broke the line a few times and started finding some overlaps, the Springboks scramble defense is just so good at the moment. They don't panic like we saw last week when they rushed out of the line. There was a little bit of that in the early stages of the game, but they pretty much got their groove after the first 20 minutes and seemed to close down any All Black opportunities. You know, the Springboks had to rely on some innovative little plays to get their gain line advantage. There was 2 or 3 moments where they went and played around the blind side or the short side off the line out, or a set piece where Damien Dialendi and Andre Pollard would fall around to the short side and try and create a little overlap. And they did it once off the back of a normal ruck where Damien Lendi once again switched from one side of the field to the other side of the field and kind of play in a completely different direction as to what it was looking like. It might look simple and very straightforward and quite obvious, but most of the defenders' eyes are watching the ruck, watching the opposite player. They're not seeing that one player moving across the field that completely changes the numbering from defenders to attackers, and I think that's, once again, Tony Brown's little innovations coming into the game. Some of them are pretty radical and out of the box, but some of them are small, where one player just changes his positioning on the field, but it can completely manipulate the defense into following him or picking the wrong side of attack. So in terms of the open play kind of spontaneous rugby, the Springboks are innovating in that area too, and then later in the game, you see once again Cheslin Colby stepping into as hooker to throw into the line out, created a bit of a distraction and a misdirection for the All Blacks. Seeing Colby step to throw in the ball, I think what they were trying to create is the image or the impression that the Springboks were going to throw all their forwards into that maul. But suddenly you see the ball going out the back. They continue to go through a few attacking phases, which then eventually resulted in Khaleesi's try, with the forwards eventually wrapping around and doing a couple more pick and carries. So it just, these little manipulations of position or just the optics of someone moving in a different direction or standing in a position they're not supposed to be standing in, just compresses the defense, because they second guess themselves and they think rather just stack up to where this distraction is taking place, and it often opens up space for other players in the back line or someone else on the wing or someone up tight to do a short little forward play. So we don't want to overcredit Tony Brown for all these little innovations, but you never really have seen things like that from the Springboks. So it's quite likely that it's his input and that Tony Brown effect coming into play for the Springboks more and more. But with those great things, there also were a few small little hiccups. The Springboks seem to be trying to offload a lot in tackles, and with that often comes errors. They forced quite a few offloads that probably didn't need to happen. A few down the wing that were forced before the player was going to touch, or one notable one where Cheslin Colby made that incredible break down the middle and looked for an offload that eventually was knocked on because it was a little bit too close or wasn't as accurate as it could have been. So I think if the Springboks learn to manage those offloading opportunities a little bit better, get their timing right, you're going to see a very, very dangerous Springbok attack that has the ability to not only bulldoze other opposition and dominate contact areas, but also keep that ball alive with those type of attackers and those type of ball carriers. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult thing to stop. So either way, like I said before, there's going to be these errors when you're playing that type of rugby. You're never going to get all the offloads right. They're always going to be high-risk passes. But when they do come off, they try scoring moments. But it's great to see the belief in their capabilities and confident enough to throw some of those offloads. And again, the Springboks, while we keep praising their attack, their defense, again, is kind of the cornerstone of their whole game plan. They made some amazing try-saving tackles. They were completely dominant in the contact encounters, knocking the All Blacks backwards, and the All Blacks made them work very hard for it, because a shout-out has to go to Wallace Atiti. He has shown that he deserves to be in that All Black jersey. He may have even leapfrogged ahead of Ethan Blackadder in my eyes. He is a very, very good player, very powerful ball carrier, incredible endurance, great with ball in hand. He's physical when he takes the ball into contact. He was giving the Springboks a lot of tackling practice, and there's no doubt we're going to see a lot more of him with the All Black squad going forward. On their other forwards, I thought Cody Taylor would have been shortlisted for man of the match. I know they don't often give it to the losing side, but he was heads and shoulders above the other All Blacks on the day. On defense, he was carrying well. He made a nice little break and almost scored off of it. He was good in the set pieces. He's really shown that he is worthy of a starting position with the All Blacks after coming off the bench for quite a few years. And he really is one of the leaders in the pack that they can look to lead by example, make the big hits, get into the physical stuff, and play that exciting counter-attacking All Black rugby when it is on offer. He links incredibly well at the backs. He runs like a center. And yeah, Cody Taylor deserves a little bit of praise for that effort. I thought he was really, really incredible. I think in terms of the small differences between these two sides, the All Blacks at the moment, I thought there was a little bit of ill discipline. They seem to be giving a lot of penalties away at the breakdown, giving the Springboks a lot of opportunities to chip away at their lead, falling over the ruck, hands in the ruck, not releasing the ball, things like that are kind of just basic. You know, you can credit it to maybe a powerful Springbok counter-rucking game, and putting a lot of pressure at the breakdown there. So I don't think maybe it was just the pressure of the occasion, a bit of stress on the All Blacks' shoulders after these couple games, but they seem to be slipping a little bit in the discipline department, an area where they used to be way better than other sides in the world. So yeah, maybe Razor's just got to do a little bit of calming with the guys and make sure that they are on top of their technique and back their skills rather than getting antsy and going for a ball on the ground when they shouldn't, or listening to the ref a little bit better. So I think that's where the Springboks actually got the upper hand. The Boks seemed calm, disciplined. There were a few moments where they also did some infringements, kind of fell over the ruck, things like that. But on top of that, the Springboks were just completely controlling that breakdown department, even when the All Blacks had the ball. They were calm, they waited for the opportunities to steal. And the likes of Damien Dialendi was even getting in there and stealing balls. So they really have a comprehensive understanding of the breakdown. You know, and like I said, it's those other, besides the discipline and these kind of try-saving tackles, it's these minor little moments that really make the difference between these two sides. And nothing was more demonstrative of that than that final steal from Pieter-Steph du Toit on the line-out. Just the All Blacks finally have an opportunity to maybe win the game. They have to go the whole length of the field. They get a penalty. They kick to about the halfway line. They get a line out. And then the Springboks steal the ball from them. You know, it's those tiny little moments that the Springboks now seem to have made their own, whereas they used to maybe capitulate and miss those opportunities. I mean, how many times have we seen the All Blacks win an incredible game in the dying moments? And the Springboks seem to have just snatched those opportunities from them. They understand that these moments can swing a game. The victory's not done until the final whistle. So that was an incredible steal from Pieter-Steph du Toit, even with all the changes and the bomb squad coming on and different jumpers and throws and Malcolm Marx coming on. They pull off an incredible line-out steal to steal the victory and win the game. So one incredible performance by the Springboks. It maybe wasn't as slick, as clinical as people wanted it to be, or as many flashy tries with the likes of Colby and Kane and Moody getting into space, but that's what it takes to beat the All Blacks. This is by no means a bad side. It's an incredible win that the Springboks have beaten the All Blacks 4 times in a row in the first time in history. But it's a great time for Springbok rugby. They seem to be evolving and innovating, even when they already have the arsenal and firepower to play pretty basic rugby and still win. They're still looking for areas and things to evolve and change. They've now got to move on to Argentina, and that won't be easy given what Argentina did to the Wallabies, but that's a whole other story to go into. But yeah, let us know what you thought of the game. Let us know down in the comments below. Tell us who you thought stood out. What areas of the game do you think that the Springboks were good at? What area could they get better at? And please hit like, please hit subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. The more subscribers, the more people get to know about these videos. Please share it with your friends. And we'll see you in the next one.